Welcome to the Bloom and Well podcast. I'm your host, Dr. McKenzy, a functional wellness chiropractor specializing in gut, brain, and hormone health. Join me as we explore natural methods for health and wellness, focusing on regulating your nervous system, nurturing your gut-brain axis, exploring the mind-body connection, and getting to the root cause of your chronic illness. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7. Understanding cortisol imbalance and natural ways to balance your stress hormones. So in today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at understanding cortisol and how it affects your body, what the causes and triggers are in regards to cortisol imbalances, and some natural, holistic ways that we can help to regulate our cortisol. So if you are someone who is constantly tired, constantly stressed, or experiencing unexplained weight changes, sleep disturbances, these issues very well could be linked to cortisol imbalances. Now, cortisol is a crucial hormone that actually plays a significant role in your body's response to stress. It's actually known as the stress hormone. And cortisol helps to regulate your metabolism, control blood sugar levels, and help manage your sleep cycles. So when those levels become imbalanced, either too high or too low, it can actually lead to a variety of health problems like fatigue and weight gain and blood sugar issues, mood swings, or difficulty sleeping. So understanding cortisol and how it affects your body is a great way to start rebalancing these hormones in your body and improve your overall health. Let's start by discussing what the typical symptoms of cortisol imbalance are. When your cortisol is imbalanced, either too high or too low, they can manifest similarly, but there are some differences as well. So some common symptoms of higher cortisol levels can include things like weight gains, specifically around the abdomen and face, a fatty tissue deposit or a hump on the back of the neck and upper shoulder is also pretty common with higher levels of cortisol. High blood pressure and muscle weakness are pretty common. Mood swings that include a lot of anxiety or depression, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, and increased thirst and urination. Now, when it comes to low cortisol levels, this does also include fatigue and muscle weakness, as well as mood swings and anxiety and depression. However, when cortisol levels are lower, you tend to have higher cravings for salt, you have more joint pain and muscle pain, typically weight loss and low blood pressure. Now, when it comes to how cortisol affects the body, we've already mentioned that this is called the stress hormone because it plays such an important role in the body's natural response to stress. So cortisol helps to regulate your metabolism, it influences inflammation and controls your blood sugar levels, while also assisting with memory formulation in the hippocampus of the brain and influencing your blood pressure by influencing the salt and water balance. So in the short term, these can be very beneficial for handling stress, but chronic levels over a long-term period can lead to negative health consequences and symptoms that we've just mentioned. Cortisol typically increases inflammation, which eventually can affect the brain and cause inflammation in the brain. This is where we get a lot of anxiety and depression and mood issues arising from high cortisol levels. Now, that's not to say that all, mental health conditions are caused directly by high levels of cortisol, but it does mean that they are impacted and influenced by it, right? So chronic stress, high cortisol levels can affect the brain structurally as well, specifically the hippocampus, which is involved in memory recall and emotional regulation. This can cause a lot of inflammation in these areas and make it more difficult to recall memories, to concentrate, to focus on the task at hand, and to have this sense of emotional stability in your everyday life. Now, as we've mentioned, cortisol can affect your weight, whether it's high cortisol causing you to retain a lot of fat or low cortisol causing you to lose a lot of weight unexpectedly and unintentionally. So cortisol actually contributes to this in a few different ways. I want to talk specifically about high cortisol because that is what I see most in my practice, and that is what I deal with when it comes to most of my patients. Higher cortisol can actually increase your appetite because your body is listening to these hormones and they're signaling the body to crave higher calorie foods, higher sugar and higher fat content, so that your body has very fast burning fuel and it has a fuel source that it can store for later because it feels like there's an imminent threat that is not going away. Higher cortisol levels can actually slow down your metabolism as well, making it difficult to lose weight and easier to gain weight because your body is seeing this weight gain as a protective mechanism. It's seeing it as extra storage of energy, and it's seeing it as a protective mechanism around your organs in the midsection for like blunt force trauma. So now that we know a little more about cortisol and how it affects the body, what specifically causes high cortisol levels? High cortisol levels can be caused by a few different things, and it is definitely something that is a case-by-case basis, which is why I always recommend sitting down with a practitioner and getting functional lab testing done, because this is going to help you get to the root cause of why your cortisol levels are high in the first place. And if you can get to that root cause, you're more likely to be able to create a successful lifestyle plan to improve your quality of life and to better regulate your stress hormones. So chronic stress, whether it is too much physical stress or too much emotional stress, is the most common cause of these elevated cortisol levels. Now, most of you are very familiar with chronic emotional stress. These are going to be stressors that we face at work or in our family life or at home or at school, in our friend groups and social groups. Prolonged physical stress is going to be overworking yourself physically. Too much exposure to the sun, too much exposure to the heat. This could also include very extreme diets as well, or dehydration. So all of these stressful events can ultimately elevate your cortisol levels. Cushing's syndrome is a medical condition where the body produces too much cortisol, and this is one that is pretty rare compared to chronic stress being the ultimate cause. However, I do want to mention it because it's very important to get tested, to get your functional testing done, just to rule this out and make sure that this is not what the problem is, because a pituitary or an adrenal gland tumor needs to be addressed quickly and in a medical setting. Medications can also cause high cortisol levels. So some research is actually showing that long-term use of corticosteroid medications is capable of increasing cortisol levels over time. Chronic sleep deprivation or irregular sleep patterns can really disrupt that circadian rhythm and then ultimately your cortisol production. So typically, our body likes to produce a lot of cortisol first thing in the morning when the sun starts to rise in order to wake up our bodies and provide us with this boost of energy to get our day started. As the day goes on, our cortisol levels start to drop and they hit their lowest point around 10 p.m. to midnight. Now, when we have poor sleep, either not enough sleep or really irregular sleep patterns, that can cause our cortisol to be elevated at night or really high in the afternoons. Poor diet has also been linked to cortisol imbalances, specifically diets that are high in sugar, refined carbohydrates, and processed foods. So how does stress actually affect cortisol production? We know that chronic stress, whether it's mental, physical, or chemical, is what ultimately leads to this cortisol imbalance or dysregulation. But how does stress actually affect that cortisol production? So when you encounter a stressful situation, your body actually responds by activating the HPA axis, also known as the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Now, the hypothalamus is a part of the brain that actually signals the pituitary gland, another part of the brain, to release ACTH, which is a hormone that tells your adrenal glands to produce cortisol. So when you're under a lot of stress, that process gets amped up and your brain starts to tell your adrenals to produce more and more and more of this cortisol, this stress hormone. Now, this process actually prepares your body to handle whatever stressor you're thinking about or whatever stress is in front of you by increasing energy availability, by increasing your brain's speed and processing to suppress those non-essential functions like your digestion and your immune response. So long term, this chronic stress and this chronic activation of this HPA axis can lead to consistently high levels of cortisol, which, as we have discussed, can have pretty detrimental effects on your health over time. First, this can include adrenal fatigue or HPA axis dysfunction. This is an overproduction of cortisol, which exhausts your adrenal glands essentially. They don't truly become exhausted, but it makes it difficult for the body to output this high amount of cortisol, which can lead to a low production of cortisol over time. It can also impact your health over time and cause symptoms like we've discussed, like weight gain, high blood pressure, diabetes, and even immune system suppression. This can also lead to or significantly impact anxiety, depression, and even cognitive impairments. So now that we've discussed cortisol's impacts on the body, let's talk about how we can regulate, or more specifically, lower high cortisol levels in a natural and holistic manner. A whole foods, plant-based diet is definitely going to be significantly better for balancing your cortisol levels, reducing high levels, but more specifically, let's talk about each of the foods or food categories that can help to benefit those hormone levels. So fruits and vegetables are fantastic because they are rich in antioxidants, which help to combat that stress and inflammation. So your berries, your oranges, your spinach, your broccoli, other leafy green vegetables, bright orange, yellow, and red bell peppers. Think the colors of the rainbow. You want your plate to be very colorful, so you're getting all of those antioxidants and anti-inflammatory nutrients. Whole grains like oats and quinoa and brown rice can help to stabilize your blood sugar levels, which brings down further inflammation and brings down cortisol levels and helps to reduce stress on the body because they have a higher fiber content than processed foods and processed sugars that tend to be stripped of their fibrous coating. Healthy fats as well, like avocados, nuts, seeds, and olive oil, can help to provide more nutrients that help to manage stress, bring down those elevated cortisol levels, and even help to balance blood sugar. There is one study that specifically shows healthy fats helps to target and bring down really high morning cortisol levels. So when you wake up feeling really anxious and you don't know why, you're not overthinking anything specifically, and you just wake up every morning feeling really anxious, on edge, and that just progresses throughout your morning for the first part of your morning, healthy fats and omega-3s may be beneficial. Lean proteins like chicken, turkey, fish, and legumes also help to regulate your blood sugar so that your blood sugar isn't spiking and that cortisol isn't spiking as well, and that your body is able to rebuild any muscle tissue that's being damaged. And it's clearly a healthier alternative than a lot of processed meats that have inflammatory byproducts, preservatives, and additives included. Herbal teas like chamomile, green tea, and ashwagandha also have shown to have calming effects that bring down anxiety levels as well as inflammation and cortisol. And surprisingly enough, even dark chocolate in moderation can help to bring down your stress and cortisol levels. Exercise is something else that's really important. And when it comes to regulating your hormones and specifically reducing high cortisol levels, you want regular physical activity, but you don't want high impact exercises. You don't want to work out for too long. You don't want to work out too hard. So you want something that's pretty short, 30 minutes or less, and low impact. Now, this is general. This is not going to be for everyone. If you are looking for something more tailored to your situation, I do recommend scheduling an appointment with myself or a different provider who can help you to figure out what type of exercise is best for you and for your specific cortisol curve. But some examples can include Tai Chi, Qigong, Yin Yoga, walking, swimming, and even cycling. They are all low impact, they don't have to be high intensity, and they can help to release endorphins that make the body feel good and bring this sense of peace into the body, which over time can help to decrease inflammation levels, help support a healthier sleep cycle, and regulate your stress hormones. So a few more ways that you can manage your cortisol levels, manage those stress levels, is to include gratitude practices or include mindfulness and meditation into your daily routine. Now, this does not have to be something that takes up a lot of time. Something that I used to do early on in my healing journey was I would write down 3 things that I was thankful for before I went to bed each night. And that took about 5 minutes. Sometimes, I'm going to be honest, it did take a little bit longer because I was really frustrated in my healing journey. But it's something that doesn't have to take up a lot of time, right? Another thing that you could do for mindfulness practice is to take 10 to 15 minutes of your day and do a yoga nidra session or an NSDR, a non-sleep deep rest meditation. Both of those are great for bringing your brain and your body back online, back into the present moment, and that has a way of regulating that HPA axis that we were discussing and ultimately your adrenals and your cortisol levels as well. Great sleep hygiene is another one, so make sure that you are prioritizing your sleep. Make sure that you are going to bed at a decent time. Make sure that you're going to bed at the same time if you can't go to bed early. Try to find a routine that your body can fall into so that it feels more safe, so that it feels more stable. It's getting that structure, it's getting that cycle and routine built around it so that your hormones start to sync up with that routine that you're building for yourself. Hobbies are another great way to engage your nervous system and regulate that HPA axis by engaging in activities that you enjoy, that you love, that help you to relax and bring peace. So when I'm talking about hobbies, I'm not talking about sports like rock climbing or rugby or any kind of hobby that's going to be really stressful, or even racing, right? We're looking for gentle hobbies that are slow paced, usually something that helps you to trigger that creative side of your brain, like painting or art or maybe putting together a puzzle or word games, something that is slow and relaxing and easy on the body and easy on the mind. Social connections are also very important. There's a thing that I talk about in a lot of my nervous system dysregulation posts, and that is called co-regulation. So in co-regulation, this is essentially the idea that your nervous system, especially if it is dysregulated, has the ability to heal and further regulate itself when you spend time with other people that either have a regulated nervous system and balanced cortisol levels, or you're spending time with people who are actively working towards balancing those hormonal levels and regulating their nervous systems. Last but not least, we have spending time in nature. So nature is so therapeutic. It is one way that you can really decompress and regulate those hormone levels just by getting outside, just by breathing in the fresh air, walking barefoot on the grass. One thing that I like to recommend to my patients and my clients is to take 5 minutes of your day to go outside and engage your senses. So find something that you can see outside, find something that you can hear. Take the time to smell something specific outside. See if you can taste anything in the air, or maybe you still taste your lunch. What can you feel? Can you feel the breeze? Can you feel maybe leaves falling from the trees? This is another technique that is going to help your brain and body to be in that present moment and stay calm and disengage that fight or flight stress response. Balancing your cortisol levels can seem overwhelming, especially if you don't know where to start, but you don't have to do this alone. At my functional wellness practice, we specialize in helping individuals like you understand and support cortisol regulation through personalized lifestyle plans and supplementation protocols. Our virtual clinic offers convenient access to expert guidance on making lifestyle changes and choosing those right supplements that will support your body's natural balance. So whether you're dealing with chronic stress, fatigue, weight gain, or any other symptoms of cortisol imbalance, we're here to help you every step of the way. If you want to reach out today and take that first step towards restoring your health and well-being, you can do so at drmckenzybrewer.com/schedule. drmckenzybrewer.com/schedule. Thanks for tuning in to the Bloom and Well podcast. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to like and subscribe on your favorite platform. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, happy healing and keep bloomin' well.